Welcome to Plant Frequencies. Today I'm honored to invite Brigitte Mars, a true pioneer in the world of herbal medicine. With over 60 years of experience, she's an herbalist, author of 17 books, and a professor at Naropa University, where she brings traditional plant wisdom to modern academia. Brigitte's deep-rooted passion for nature has shaped her life's work. From sustainable living to holistic healing, she's here to share her journey, insights, and the powerful ways plants can help transform our lives. Let's get into it. If you could use one herb for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Dandelion nettles and cannabis.
Yeah, okay.
She's wild and unbridled, and we need to cut her down and keep her. I try to make everything more green. I'm going to blend nettles or dandelion greens in it and tell my grandkids it's superhero pancakes. 2025, and people are still trying to figure out, what should we eat? Have you ever taken LSD? And I said, every Easter since I was 15. Of course, not when I was pregnant, but I prefer psilocybin now.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Okay, all right.
I like that you have a very shiny glow to you. I met you first when I moved here about 5 years ago. I moved to Boulder for Naturally Boulder. Took me by, like, as somebody that was just really anchored in the community, and I moved here for the community. You've got so much brightness to you. I love the what would you call that? You have in your hair, the tinsel. Thank you. I'm like, what is the word?
Sparkles.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you've always had a very bright kind of shine to you and very welcoming. And I'm happy to sit down with you and get to know you more.
Thank you, Stephen.
I'm very interested in more of your origin story.
Okay.
Kind of like, what was it like growing up for you? What kind of kid were you? And what was life like early on?
And we're rolling.
Yeah, we're live.
We're rolling. Okay,
yeah.
Well, a kid in upstate New York, but my mom was French Canadian. So really a lot of the gems of my childhood was going back to Canada, to this little French village, Bay St. Paul. And my grandmother she didn't call herself an herbalist, but she was sort of a folk healer. And she was really big on, we all wore little pouches with garlic around our neck to repel the cold. And I saw her heal a little wounded bird. One time we made maple syrup from the maple trees and poured it on snow, and that was ice cream. And I thought that that's like something out of a fairy tale. And I always enjoyed reading. So I think at 10 years old, I would get up and make breakfast and I would read everything, the cereal boxes. And at 10, I said, whoa, all of these lists of ingredients, maybe it just said that was obviously a problem. I can't believe it's taken so long for people to wake up it's been a problem. But at 10, I said, no, I'm going to eat rice for breakfast because that's what they do in many parts of the world. And maybe that's better than red dye number 2 and all of that.
So this was in Canada?
Yeah, and in Syracuse in upstate New York.
Oh, okay.
So my parents lived in upstate New York, and I didn't live with my grandmother, but I would go there and visit, and that's where the herbal thing came from.
Yeah.
In Syracuse, it was antibiotics and lots of, shots, but I was always kind of an environmentalist at an early age because it just made so much sense, and I didn't like seeing so much waste. And, people back then would just roll down the car windows and throw their litter out the window. Yeah. And, I would go, oh, that's terrible. My mom said, it gives people jobs. So that was the American thinking. I went to an all-girls boarding school, Miss Hall School for Young Ladies. Why was I interested in herbs? But really because of my grandmother, and also because I'd smoked cannabis. And I thought, well, if that herb is amazing, and what about hawthorn and garlic and echinacea? So I had sort of an alternative practice in my dorm room where my classmates would come to my room. And even though I was only 15, it's like, try this for cramps. How about some rescue remedies? Smell some rosemary oil to help you study. So I kind of had a little sideline. And I realized I'm just a kid, but these are remedies that have been used by millions of people for thousands of years. And it kind of worked.
And where were you getting this information? Was some of it
Books.
intuitive? Yeah.
No, it was books. I went into a health food store, Pittsfield health food store, and the owners kind of took me under their wing, and I would go in every Saturday, and they said, we think you're ready to learn about sprouting. We think you're ready to learn about juicing. It's like they would have been talking about me to decide what book they were going to sell me the next week. And so at 15, I was growing sprouts in my windowsill in my dorm.
What kind were you growing?
Back then, like you could grow mung and maybe alfalfa. They didn't have the variety. Now I grow a lot of broccoli sprouts. Yeah, that's really one of my favorites.
And what inspires you to grow the broccoli sprouts?
Well, because I know of the anti-cancer compounds in it, the DIM, dimethyl,
for estrogen.
For clearing hormones out of the liver.
Oh, okay.
And so I work part-time at a pharmacy called Alive and Well, and people come in, and a lot of women of menopausal age say they're looking for DIM, and then they complain about, whoa, this stuff is expensive. And I say, well, you could grow broccoli sprouts in your kitchen. And I am really big on how sprouts, like 1 pound, I know, of alfalfa seed can make 16 gallons of food. So what a wonderful way to be able to feed more people.
And 1 pound of alfalfa seed, I would estimate costs $20 to $30. So very inexpensive. Yeah, if you're able to grow it yourself at home, you can do it for very inexpensive. The main thing with sprouts is keeping it really clean.
Keeping it clean, and I tend to sprout more in the colder months. When it's really hot summer, I'm going to be eating dandelion greens and violets and things like that, lettuce from my garden. But I grew sprouts all winter long, and the idea that you can eat something that's so fresh that it's still growing, I love that.
Very unique to be able to eat something that's still alive.
That's still alive, yeah. And I feel it. So I'm a big believer in it, always have been.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm. How would you describe maybe like the essence of the plant at that stage, at the sprout young stage?
Well, according to the principles of, natural medicine, like things that are growing, that are youthful, help to promote youthful vitality. So when we eat things that are like, baked and fried and microwaved, it's kind of like they're not going to grow anymore. They're denatured. The enzymes, the life force has been killed. So I actually wrote a book years ago called Rawsome. So I dove really deep into the whole raw foods movement. I'm not 100% raw now. I don't know many people that are.
No big deal. Me neither.
Yeah. But I totally gave it my all, and I love it, and I still make a lot of the recipes. And the idea that just seems to make so much sense. Like you could grow it in your kitchen, because people say, what do you eat in the winter? Or I don't know how to drive. I walked here, so I lived right downtown Boulder. So the idea that I can have food growing and not like, oh, I have to go to Whole Foods or Natural Grocers every time I want to do something. So I really foster being independent. And there were times where I lived in a van, back in the hippie days. I lived in a teepee, and I grew sprouts then. I even grew them in like a paint strainer bag. You could hang it from a hook, and you would just rinse it and always have fresh greens. We also know that the nutrients increase, they come alive. And so vitamin C and enzymes. So enzymes are super important because we know that many, many diseases are no longer as easy to treat as they used to be. People have gotten really sort of adapted and immune to the amount of antibiotics. And we know that so many health conditions are due to inflammation. And what reduces inflammation are enzymes. And enzymes start getting killed off at about 114 to 120 degrees. So to include enzyme-rich food is a great way to reduce inflammation. And since almost everything is inflammatory, whether it be acne, eczema, cystitis, arthritis, otitis, bursitis, all of itises, use more fresh things for those anti-inflammatory enzymes.
Now, did you ever get into microgreens, the next phase of the plant's development?
Yeah, I grow sunflower greens. It's a microgreen. I love that buckwheat. However, I have noticed a trend that I don't really like in the natural food store is that a lot of the seeds are being pasteurized. A lot of the things that used to sprout are not sprouting, like sunflower seeds.
Oh, so you're saying you could just buy sunflower seeds from the store and they're pasteurized?
Right, and they're not growing anymore, at least the last year.
That kills them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why do you think they're doing that?
To decrease mold content and increase the shelf life.
Oh.
So now I'm either going to, which I have been lately, ordering the seeds online that are sproutable, but during my years as a raw foodist and even after, because I still think we should all eat some raw food. When they pasteurize things, they heat it to a high temperature and it benefits the marketing and those behind that, but it's not beneficial. So think about this, Stephen, like if you were to plant a sunflower seed, it could grow into a 10-foot tall plant and produce hundreds of seeds, you know, but if you pasteurize that seed or you roast it or you tamari it or bake it or whatever, it's just going to rot in the ground. Even though the seed might look the same, you've really...
It's not alive anymore.
It's not alive. And, you know, either rot in the ground or a 10-foot tall plant that the bees are just like going crazy. And I love sunflowers. I have a daughter named Sunflower. So you can eat the petals. And, of course, the seeds are good for your eyes. I do think that if we... a lot of seeds are being sterilized and a lot of foods are being made to be seedless grapes. But yet you can go to the health food store and buy grape seed extract because obviously the seeds are good for something. And then seedless oranges and seedless tomatoes and everything. But seeds are good for fertility. You know, like when the seeds are high in protein, they're high in vitamin E. They contain that life force that for germination. And so when I work with clients, I've also written a book called The Sexual Herbal, and I talk a lot about fertility. And, if we start making everything without viability, I bet that's going to affect fertility in people.
That makes sense. In one of your videos I watched in preparation for this, you commented on cashews, and that cashews, in the way that they process it, are heated, and they might not be as good for us as we think. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm happy to know that, and I eat a lot of cashews.
But they are also in the poison ivy family.
Oh.
So are mangoes. So, I mean, I love cashews too. But what's interesting is it'll say on the label at the store, raw cashews, raw almonds, raw hazelnuts. The cashews have always been heated because the fruit of the cashew plant is somewhat caustic, and I don't know if you've ever eaten a mango and it can cause a rash. Some people are very sensitive to mangoes. So again, I love mangoes.
So limit the amount of mango and cashews,
especially if you have like eczema or psoriasis,
which are skin conditions.
Skin conditions,
okay.
Yeah.
I want to go back to you 15 in your dorm room, and you're sharing your medicinal knowledge and tinctures and learnings. Kind of pick it up from there. And what did the next few years look like as your passion for plants, continued to blossom and your path showing itself?
Well, and it's kind of a wild story, and I am writing a memoir book.
That's what I was
about it.
hoping. I was hoping for a wild story.
But in high school, every time I had a paper to do, whether it was chemistry or French or Spanish or history, I would write something about plant medicine, herbal medicine during the French Revolution, or plantas medicinales de Mexico. I mean, I would always use it. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but I think early on I said, I want to be a healer somehow, like that. Kind of like my grand-mère, which means grandmother, but I didn't even know the term herbalist. So I was expelled from Miss Hall's for some of the herbs in my drawer. Yeah, they were very good herbs for cramps, but it was, 1970. No, so there I was, cast to the wind. And then next thing you know, I'm living in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands with my parents who had a condo there, and I met this tribe of hippies, and they were opening up a vegetarian restaurant called The Magic Door, and the lead chef needed an apprentice. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I'm going to learn to cook from her. I'm going to learn to harvest wild plants from the rainforest. I'm going to learn about harvesting seaweeds from the Caribbean. And so I started doing that. I learned about home birth because she was pregnant. And then I lived in a teepee in the Ozarks in Missouri.
For 2.5 years.
For 2.5 years, yeah. And pretty much, you know, the closest grocery store had American cheese and beer and cigarettes. That's not what we were looking for. So I got a copy of the book, Stalking the Wild Asparagus by Yule Gibbons, the kindly lady at the library. I said, I need to learn about country ways. And she said, you need to read Yule Gibbons' book. So I'm finding all these things, you know, elderberries and wild raspberries and rose hips and pokeweed and nettles. And we were a pretty large group. It was, you know, a commune. We were very influenced by that Crosby, Stills and Nash, gotta get back to the land, you know. So, and you could buy land cheap, and there wasn't a lot of organic produce back then. Of course, we wanted to grow some other herbs too on the land, and you kind of had to do that. I had 2 children, Sunflower and Rainbow. Rainbow was born in the teepee. And, you know, you often hear these stories of the 60s. If you can remember them, you weren't really there. But because I was a mother and very concerned about nutrition, I made it a point, my kids are going to be healthy, they're going to be beautiful, they're going to be strong and smart, and I'm going to feed them the best possible food. And I found it to be a great adventure that there's so much wild food in the forest and by the creek, and we didn't have electricity, so we dried the food on a big black trampoline and would store it for the winter so I could make lamb's quarter soup and purslane pickles. And...
Oh, were you harvesting meat as well?
No.
Okay.
We weren't. Somehow I always thought, what did the Native Americans do? And somehow we forgot that they hunted. We were so, Abby Hoffman, who was one of the Chicago 7, had this thing he said, and we pretty much believed it. If people ate what they killed and killed what they ate, there'd be no more war. And of course, that's not true, but it sounded like a good idea. So we really were into being as benevolent to the earth. We did have goats for a while and raised goats and made goat's milk and yogurt. And they made the goat's milk, but we made yogurt with the goat's milk.
So it was mostly plant-based.
Yes, it was all plant-based.
And what would you say, where were most of the calories coming from? Were there particular plants that...
From acorns and from walnuts. And, walnuts are not the easy walnuts that you get in the store. They're in a big, hard green shell that kind of dissolves and then it's brown. And we would put all the walnuts in the road and then someone would drive a truck over it to kind of crack them. And I would sprout the walnuts because you need to remove the tannins. And because we had to walk to a creek to get the water, I would put the acorns in a colander and tie a rope to both sides. And so the little creek would just run over the acorns and then they would sprout. And then cattail pollen. And, the cattails, not from the kitties, but the Typha latifolia.
I grew up around those, never heard of any type of use for them.
Oh my gosh, a study at Syracuse University showed you can get more food from an acre of cattails than an acre of potatoes. So that was my work in the world. And then my first husband had another girlfriend move in. And so he gave me money to go to massage school, kind of get me out of the way there. So I came to Boulder to go to massage school because I thought, I know a lot about herbs now, but I need to learn about anatomy and physiology and nutrition and pathology.
Did you know you wanted to be in Boulder, or was it this massage school that brought you here?
It brought me here, but when you have kids named Sunflower and Rainbow, you don't fit in everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to go where there's other kids that are named Snowflake and Hawk and... So we came to Boulder, and it just seemed like a great place because the natural foods movement, Celestial Seasonings was here, White Wave Tofu, Everybody's Skin Trip. This really was a hub of the natural foods movement. And I will say I also had a vegetarian restaurant in Miami somewhere in the early 70s.
You did?
Called The Supernatural, yeah.
What was your best seller there?
you know, it was simple. We had supernatural sandwiches, supernatural salads, and then a special soup of the day. And it was really a beautiful scene. It really was. And we harvested a lot of, you know, wild avocados. We would go to Homestead and papayas. We did a lot of smoothies. It was quite the scene.
What was the best part about that business? What did you, some of your favorite memories?
The camaraderie, people, that it was like the place to be, the supernatural restaurant and juice bar. And we had a Norwalk juicer, like the best kind of juicer, a hydraulic press juicer.
Okay.
And you know,
versus like a real fast spinning that aren't as good for us.
It grinds everything up, and then you put all the pulp in a bag, and then it presses it. And I'd say the reward was that you are helping your community, you're educating people, and even then, I did go to Miami-Dade College during that time, but I was thinking about, it's allergy season. What kind of food shall I make that's going to help people with the allergies? Or it's cold and flu season, or, you know, this is going around. And so I would kind of tweak my menu to be something that was helpful. You know, it's
to
really,
the community as a whole.
It's really hot, you know, in summer in Miami. So we're going to have cooling, you know, cucumber raita and gazpacho and...
Tell me more about the juicing. My understanding is it's best to consume the juice within 10 to 20 minutes of juicing it, because it oxidizes and the benefits burn off. And then also interested in, what were you doing with the pulp? Did you have a upcycling kind of process for it, a second use of it?
I made sunshine burgers with the carrot pulp. I would add almond butter and onions, and then we would bake them. In my book, Rawsome, I have a whole chapter on what to do with like the pulp. Like you can make crackers in a dehydrator. So we would do that. We did facials sometimes. We also would compost. You know, had a garden at the house.
Okay, and then thoughts on consuming the juice quickly versus, you know, you go to Whole Foods and they're selling juice that maybe it's been there for several days.
Yeah, I mean, we made it to order.
Yeah, immediately.
We made it to order. Yeah, it was because, and again, are 30 people going to come in, or, you know, 10? And are they going to order the carrot, beet, celery, parsley, or are they going to order the kale, lemon, spinach?
Any business insights that you pulled from that time? That sounds like that was like your real first like business venture. Maybe perspectives that you get that helped you then into your next businesses on what people wanted, or what's it even like what's important with business, or
Well, I will say that John Hay, the former founder of Celestial Seasonings, along with Mo Siegel, became sort of like a mentor to me. And he said, well, I was ready to give up on working in the natural foods industry. I was making minimum wage, bagging brown rice, and I thought, this is nowhere. John Hay said they're looking for an herbalist for this new store called Pearl Street Market, which was the forerunner to Alfalfa's Market. And I got the job. And so I learned so much from, you know, being in the natural foods industry, ordering products. And my challenge was, how can I take this little herb department, you know, full of beautiful herbs, organic herbs, that they maybe sold $60 a day of. So my challenge was, how can I turn this into thousands of dollars a day? I started giving out samples and sampling a tea every day and learning about it and talking about it. And then I started teaching. People come in the store are already potential customers. I need to take this out to Naropa and the massage school. And then KGNU asked me if I would do a weekly radio show. So I've been doing that for 40 years, called Naturally. It just, you know, being in the industry. And I will share that one day I was at a meeting for the upper level management people at Alfalfa's that became their second store. And I had taken a bunch of smart herbs. I was hoping the owners would see that I was so valuable, they would send me to the Natural Products Expo. So I drank some ginkgo tea, and I wore a yellow shirt because yellow is the color of cerebral stimulus. And I smelled some rosemary, and I ate a high protein breakfast, and I walked briskly to work. And, you know, when I got to the meeting, it was mostly about shrink and margins and markup, and that wasn't, but I felt all lit up, and I said, I've got it. I'm going to make a tea, and I'm going to call it Mental Clarity, and I'm going to put ginkgo and rosemary and gotu kola, and then I'll do serenity and sensuality and femininity and maternity. And in 20 minutes, those brain herbs kicked in, and I had the whole blueprint for a tea company, which I did for like 20 years. And then we sold it, and then it was called Unity Herbs, and the people that bought it like didn't get that the teas corresponded to the chakras and the colors, and they could have used me as a spokesperson, but they used some nerdy guy with. So live and learn. I've written 18 books on natural medicine, and I still teach, give herb walks. I'd say a big part of my thing is, everyone can participate in this in some degree. I've given it my all, and I see that it really works. I would not still be interested if I thought, oh, it's just, placebo or it doesn't do anything. I mean, it works with babies, it works with cats who have no idea what you're giving them. And it's good for the planet. So
it sounds like you're very committed to the marketing side, and marketing to you and to me is education. You've put out all these books. You're consistently weekly putting out information in these ways. And is that the way that you see that's been one of the most supportive ways to your business ventures, is your ability to educate and that skill of storytelling? And
I think so. I mean, right now, I'm really loving TikTok. I'm glad they didn't take it away. But we've got so many opportunities like Facebook and Instagram. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but I see it as a great opportunity to, be in touch with people all around the world. And I'm not just posting pictures of, I don't know, my latest fashion score. It's really about like, hey, you could be eating the dandelions. Please don't spray them. And I know that by sharing stuff like that, it's going to change consciousness. I can't believe that I'm still seeing pesticides applied sign in educated Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Because there's this image that we have to be a certain way and that nature is wild. She's wild and unbridled, and we need to cut her down and keep her controlled. Yes, we need to control her. We can't let it get too wild. And so, homeowners associations, of one I live in, they have this, thing like, oh, well, actually, it goes a little bit deeper, because growing your own food is a sign of not being affluent. Like, oh, they must be poor. They have to grow their own lettuce. Oh, can't they afford for the doctor to come and bring them leeches? So this goes back to like the 1800s. So if you had food in your yard, it was a sign that maybe you weren't as wealthy as the person who had the grocery cart come and deliver food. So it was really a way of showing off affluence. But now in this day and age, we know that having green things oxygenates the air that we breathe, that detoxifies the pollution in the air, that rather than, again, getting in a car and driving to go buy what you need for dinner, you could harvest it. It's going to be fresh. You're going to save thousands of dollars a year. And the other good news is, a lot of the so-called weeds I see that those are the avatar plants. They survive adversity. They grow without being watered. No one planted the dandelions or the violets or the chickweed. They grow. They'll survive the drought. They'll survive the snow that's maybe coming next week. It doesn't matter. But if you have tomatoes out there, they're gone. So the weeds, they figured out how to survive. And the other thing is they require much less water. I mean, they will survive. People think that the dandelions kill the grass. That's a common myth. And what really is true is that, no, the grass dies because lawn grass, which is usually non-native sourced, requires about 30% of our nation's water.
Wow.
So the grass dies and the dandelions are still growing.
So you wrote a great article on the history of lawns in the U.S., and you touched on it a little bit here with 1800s, maybe the elites in like Europe, that they were showing off that they had all this money, they didn't need to grow their own food, so they grew grass that offered no benefit. But then that's how like cricket and like lawn tennis came about, and then that kind of spread over here to the U.S. and we've just adapted that. Would you share more about the downsides of having all of that grass, and then how people might start to incorporate the dandelions and these food forests or herbs and bring?
Well, I certainly understand that you don't necessarily want things really tall. You want a place where the toddlers can toddle and the pets can frolic, and you can have a picnic or throw a frisbee. But there's a lot of things that grow very shallow, or I want to say not very tall. So one great lawn alternative would be Dutch white clover, Trifolium pratense. No, it's Dutch white clover, alba. I think
Dutch white clover.
We'll just call it Dutch white clover. It's a trifolium for sure. Because it only grows like 3 or 4 inches tall. It produces a little white flower. The bees can still collect nectar from it. But there's things like violets, chickweed, thyme that make nice, fragrant lawns that require very little care. Chamomile, the more you step on it, the better it thrives.
Chamomile, I thought of chamomile like it was a bush.
Well, there's several varieties of it, but no, it's not too tall. But thyme, violets, chickweed, and if you go online, the article I wrote for Huffington Post, which is still online, it's called "Get Off Your Grass and Create an Edible Lawn."
I have it right here.
Oh,
I pulled
good.
a lot of good information from it.
So wait, again, during World War II, people had victory gardens. We realized, it's wartime. We need to start being more independent. We're already relying on so many foreign imports. We're being very wasteful. And, it'd be one thing if we were eating the grass, but then we use more gasoline to mow it down. And it's really noisy. I mean, do you like it when your neighbors start mowing their lawn at 8 o'clock Sunday morning, or maybe you're getting a massage, or you're wanting to read, or...
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to take care of a lawn, and it is more of a kind of, there's some pride around it, having a really well manicured lawn and maybe kind of showing off to the neighbors, but there's not much benefit to it besides getting to maybe like picnic in it, play in it a bit. But I didn't grow up in a way, I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. I didn't grow up in a way where anybody was growing anything food related. All food was coming from the store.
Yes, and we need to be ready. I mean, all around the world, we've seen what can happen, whether it be Los Angeles or Lahaina or North Carolina, like stuff happens.
Yeah.
I think think about doing lawns that are shorter. But when I look at my little yard, because the homeowners associations have kind of grandmothered me in.
Oh, good.
Like, she's weird, but everyone walks by and takes pictures of our yard and says, I love your place. I walk by here so I can see it. And there's butterflies and hummingbirds and birds' nests, and it's colorful and beautiful. And there's solar lights. So people really enjoy it. We've gotten so serious and homogenized. So, yeah, and I'm really grateful that my homeowners association has kind of given me a pass to be a little wild.
Nice. Shout out to your homeowners association. Thank you for grandfathering you in.
But I really think for those of you who are in a homeowners association, you need to start going to the meetings. You need to start doing petitions and saying, like, we would rather have a community garden. We don't want pesticides sprayed because our children and our pets are playing out there. Like, come on. We need to be part of the solution instead of just kvetching about all that's wrong.
And help us understand what type of issues those pesticides can cause us, those herbicides, pesticides, even fertilizers. What's happening to people?
Well, first of all, the word "side" means to kill, whether it be genocide, fungicide, herbicide, pesticide. So people think that they're spraying something and it's just going to kill the dandelions, but it's also sterilizing the soil. And we know how beneficial earthworms are, but then
for aerating the soil.
Yes, and for they eat and then they defecate, and that enriches the soil. We also know that the bees are responsible for pollinating something like 3 out of every 4 bites of food we eat. Right now, like the second most expensive spice in the world is vanilla. It has to be hand pollinated, because the bees that once pollinated it are extinct. And of course, vanilla only blooms for like 36 hours or something really short. So, but, think about it. Right now, when I was growing up, an apple was a dime. Now you might pay $1, $2, $3 for a good organic apple. Can you imagine how much it'll cost if they all have to be hand pollinated?
Yeah. My understanding also of, say, apples is due to soil depletion, GMOs, just monocropping, the amount of nutrients in an apple is about a quarter what it was just 80 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
To make more room they want a longer shelf life, they want it to be sweeter, all that comes at a cost, mostly to the nutrition.
Mm-hmm. When I look at it, why should we do this with edible lawns? Well, you can save thousands of dollars a year. You can have better health because the food is so fresh. So our culture really uses a lot of plants that are annuals that, they are only here for a year.
Just one time, and then you got to replant it.
Replant them.
Versus a...
like a perennial.
Perennial.
Like if you plant a raspberry bush, or an apple tree, you'll have more plants the next year. But you can, the most of the things that we're eating, even if we're shopping at the local natural food store, how long ago do you think that kale or spinach was in the ground? It could have been weeks ago. How long do you think those bananas, which came from, Panama or something, were on a tree? And then...
Tell us about that. Tell us about, there's a sustainability aspect of food getting trucked from very far away and all that gas.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts on as soon as a plant is harvested, what is happening to it? Is it decomposing? Are the nutrients through dehydration burning off? Is it...
Well, I made a dandelion violet salad yesterday, and you notice that it starts getting drier. The water will evaporate, and that doesn't have to be such a bad thing. But there's something about the freshness, the vitality. Nutrients like vitamin C can start decreasing because it is deactivated by heat and light. So the idea that we could eat something fresh, there's vitality in that, and it makes you feel amazing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going for. There's a lot of work to do, and I want to feel amazing. Mm-hmm. And the weeds make me feel amazing. Mm-hmm. They really do.
Growing up very in like a conservative way, where I was getting everything from the grocery store, my parents, were focused on health, but not in a way where we're going out into the forest or we're growing anything ourselves. That statement of the weeds make me feel amazing is like, I know it's true. And I believe it, and I've experienced it, and yet it's just so in me from my just upbringing that's like, that sounds crazy.
Well, I marvel that people will let the apples fall from their tree, throw them in the trash, and then go buy commercial apples at the grocery store.
Yeah, like
right?
The store has the good food. Anything else is not real good food.
We've been disempowered to think, I couldn't possibly be smart enough to find my own food. Yeah. It's got to have the USDA stamp of approval.
Yeah.
I'm asking people it doesn't have to be that way. I think that that's all part of the plan to get us to use as much fuel as possible, drive more. And like I said, I don't know how to drive. I'm 72. So for me, I walk and I notice there's a wild bush, or I'm going to use every square inch to grow something. And even if it's just a balcony or a porch or something, you'll find that your kids are more likely to eat things if they see the miracle of, I grew this carrot. I love carrots,
I say that all the time with microgreens.
Yeah.
People will come up to I'm at the Boulder Farmers Market. I'm interacting with the crowd. Kids that defy eating fully grown vegetables would love to eat the living broccoli, the living broccoli microgreens, and it's the parents are like, this, we can't get our kid to eat anything. And then they'll start growing it themselves at home, and there's a connection to it, and it really sparks something in the kid.
And now giving kids the responsibility of, you're in charge of growing the sprouts. I mean, it's so easy. You pour some water in, and then I even give the water, if I'm growing sprouts in a jar, to water the houseplants. But they would take a pair of scissors. I'd give each of my grandkids a pair of scissors, and they would just cut the buckwheat lettuce or the sunflower sprouts and eat it. Or it's amazing. Yes, that really is going to get our kids to eat healthier, whereas they might turn their nose up at the, boil in a bag vegetables that were put on their plate.
If someone was to start with just one or two things to grow outside in their home, maybe just starting here in the Colorado, I'm hearing dandelion. That seems like a good one because it's drought resistant and it's just figured it out. It's just gonna live. What's something else? Another one or two that you might recommend?
Well, I do really like the herb nettles, but it stings you, so people are kind of afraid of nettles. But Rudolf Steiner said nettles are the heart of the world. And I've also written a book called Nettle Power. And nettles are actually really high in protein. The seeds are good for the thyroid. The root is good for the prostate. High in minerals, especially iron, very good for the bones. So I really, really like nettles. And I actually think the getting stung with the nettles is really beneficial for arthritis. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. I'm only familiar with nettle tea. I couldn't point out the nettle plant and what it looks like.
Yeah, well, we make nettles spanakopita, nettles lasagna. So I try to make everything more green. You know, if we're making gluten-free pancakes, I'm going to blend nettles or dandelion greens in it and tell my grandkids it's superhero pancakes. Green, like Green Lantern or something. So nettles is a great one. Chickweed's another wonderful one. It likes the colder weather, so it's just starting to flower with little white flowers. I actually have designed a phone app called I Plant with Brigitte Mars. Letter I, plant. So it works for iPhone and Android. Super nerdy. A couple Mormon Navy SEALs turned one of my books into a phone app. And
Mormon Navy SEALs. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, they hired me for a few days to show them all the wild weeds. Yeah, because if it goes down, we're ready.
Okay, so for like survival training,
Yes.
when they were still active or they'd already...
I think they'd already done their thing, but they were still really interested in it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're ready.
And this app helps you to identify?
No, it doesn't. For that, I like the app Picture This, which is $20 a year. I love that app. I take pictures of everything. But then iPlant will tell you, can you eat it? Is it safe for pregnant women? Is it safe for people with high blood pressure? So it'll tell you what to do with it, which iPlant doesn't really do. Oh, I'm sorry. iPlant with Brigitte Mars tells you what to do with it. Picture This will tell you what it is.
Okay, so you need to already know what it is, and then you put that in iPlant, and iPlant's like, here's what you can do with it.
Yeah.
Here's all the options.
Amaranth. You could eat the seeds. It's, related to quinoa. Yeah, you can eat the greens. Yeah.
Is there a spot that you recommend purchasing these seeds or just finding anything non-GMO organic seeds online?
Well, I do love supporting, the local natural food stores. I do go to, all of them. We're so blessed here in Colorado, but I have been buying my sunflower greens online, and also another local store, Rebecca's Apothecary. They're selling the sproutable sunflower seeds. I just noticed that.
Oh, beautiful. What do you think is the difference between consuming something that has been like a sprouted pea protein versus a non-sprouted pea protein?
Well, the sprouting it makes it more digestible.
Yeah.
It's like...
And bioavailable?
Bioavailable, absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of people say, oh, broccoli's hard to digest. It's high in sulfur. It gives them gas. Sprouting the seeds, you've got the life force. Every one of those seeds has the potential to grow into like a big broccoli plant. I mean, that whole family, the Brassicaceae family, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, radish, rutabaga. They have wonderful anti-cancer compounds, high in sulfur. It's good for our brain. And most of if you look at the grocery store, you could probably look at like which ones are in that family, the Brassicaceae. They used to call it the cruciferous family because all of their flowers are 4 petals in the shape of a cross, but now it's the Brassicaceae, so got to keep up with the latest taxonomy.
So my company, B Micro, all of our products are of the Brassica family.
Okay.
It's broccoli, red cabbage, different types of radishes. I wonder what your thoughts are. Well, share one of them here with you. This is a gift for you.
Oh, thank you.
And it's freeze-dried microgreens, so mostly red cabbage. And you could twist open that.
Can I open it?
See, yeah, please.
Okay.
That's
But
yours.
I won't,
Yeah, you could let it go over. We got.
Oh my
we got
gosh! Look at this.
Thank you.
I like the purple.
That purple signals anthocyanins, so things that we find in blueberries and elderberries. It's a very powerful detoxifying color.
Yeah, and it also improves peripheral circulation to the brain, the eyes, the ears. Look at this beautiful color. So you would sprinkle this on top of a salad or your rice?
Yeah, egg, salad, sandwich, smoothie, anything you like. We have a powdered version as well, but I like the least amount of processed.
I like this because, the essential oils will evaporate more readily if it's powdered. So, so I would just put this on top of like some rice or stew or something like that and not heat it. Try to add it at the very end.
Yes.
So keep it on. Thank you so much.
Very well.
I'm so grateful. So, Wow. So 2 teaspoons garnish any meal. So this is great. These are great things to do.
Yeah, 2 teaspoons is equal to 2 cups of full cups of leafy greens. So it's a lot of plants, a lot of vegetables all in one space. And I wonder what your thoughts are on, maybe if you could share more on like the energy of the microgreen as it's been dried. So we talked about the vitality, it's young, and that young plant, that energy brings us like that young, youthful energy. What are your thoughts when we dry something? There's lots of different ways to dry things, but specifically more around like the freeze drying of something, if you have experience in that.
Well, I've never freeze dried because that requires equipment. And I will say that...
And if you ever want to, I can collaborate with you. I have many freeze dryers.
Okay, super. Well, I will say that canning things, which a lot of people rely on, you have to boil and boil and boil. Like if you want to can tomatoes, you have to like boil those tomatoes in a jar for like 40 minutes or something. I haven't canned in a long time. So I've
never done it either.
I used to can. And then you can freeze things, but what if the power goes out? And what if you want to like take it backpacking? This you could take backpacking, or if you can things, they're really heavy. If like time to head for the hills,
yeah,
right?
good luck carrying it all.
So
that's equivalent to like a whole tray of microgreens. Right
so dehydrating concentrates them, and you can set a dehydrator to different temperature settings. So dehydrating a little bit slower at a lower temperature.
That below 114?
Yeah, before 114. Yeah, I usually set my dehydrator at 111. And I've learned you can dehydrate watermelon. You can and another thing about canning is that you have to keep the canned things in a somewhat shelf room, like the temperature. You can't let it freeze.
Like a basement.
Yeah, like if you were, you have canned tomatoes and you left your home and it froze because you was heated with wood or something. Yeah, I had that experience. All my canned goods froze and broke. Yeah, so I didn't do that again. So I explored dehydrating, and I think it preserves the nutrients better than any other method. Basically, if you're dehydrating at a low temperature, it makes the water evaporate, but you're not killing.
It's like a convection oven, just at a very low temperature. There's a fan, there's a heating element, just blowing air across it and evaporating the air.
And it's also a real ancient way of preserving things. Just like people would smoke their fish, cold smoke. I'm big on that is the way to preserve food, and usually frozen things are blanched. Meaning they pour boiling water over them for a minute to kill the enzymes. So you think if I wanted to freeze blueberries, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put them on a cookie sheet so they don't all stick together. And then once they are frozen, put them in a container. But dehydrating is my favorite method of preserving nutrients. It saves nutrients. It saves space. It's going to be longer lasting, whereas things canned, you're like, oh, did it seal properly? Am I going to get botulism from this 10-year-old canned beans or something?
And I started this journey where I was dehydrating at first, and that was really good. And it browned the leaves. It had a much shorter shelf life. And then I discovered the freeze drying technology. And for those not familiar, freeze drying freezes whatever you're putting in it, from meat to vegetables, down to negative 40 degrees. And it puts it in this chamber that under immense pressure, and it's just pulling the moisture out. So heat is never applied. And that's how it's able to keep its color, its texture, its flavor. And that is how they do those like survival prepper meals. You go to REI and you're like, you look at the shelf life, and it expires in 25 years. So there's a much longer shelf life, and it retains up to 100% of all the nutrients, where dehydration can, depending on the temperature, can burn off some of the more fragile vitamins, mineral compounds. So this is a freeze-dried, and I think dehydrated is really great for many things too, but this one I chose to do freeze-dried.
That's great. Yeah, I love it.
Okay, thank you. Wondering, there's some large names on the internet. Have you heard of Paul Saladino?
I don't think so.
They call him the carnivore MD.
Okay.
And he is all in on like a carnivore diet. He's like, I only eat meat because that's how we evolved. We evolved in a way where, we were mostly hunters, not so much gatherers, and we were just eating meat and liver and fat. And he eats some fruits, and that's his whole diet. And he's got a very large following, and he tells his following, and there's many influencers like this out there that also have meat-based products where they're trying to sell you like jerky, and they're trying to sell you tallow, and which are good products, but they're like, hey, only eat meat, and vegetables are actually bad for you because they have these
lignans or
defense
oxalic
compounds.
acid or
Could you speak to that on
It's interesting. Here we are 2025 and people are still trying to figure out what should we eat? And I've seen so many trends, macrobiotic and gluten-free and eat more complex carbohydrates. And it seems like every 6 months there's a different thing. And, the Mediterranean diet is like local fish, local vegetables, things in season. I've done it all. I've been vegan. My was been hunted for a while. I've tried everything. And I think people need to try different things in their life to see what works for them. And what works for you when you're like a 20-year-old yogi living on the beach at Key West might be different than when you become a lumberjack in Alaska. And I don't think it's one size fits all. And I think people's blood types might also differ about, like, some people do really good being vegetarian or vegan and some people don't. And so I really just want to not judge and give people the freedom to see what works for them and, support the farmers and the growers and the animal husbandry folks that are doing the best possible job for the welfare. The big term right now is regenerative agriculture. It's not just organic. It's like care of the soil, the air, the plants, the animals, and the laborers that work in the growing the food. So, we keep evolving. And
you're a vegetable eater. That's part of some movements that are trending right now is the anti-vegetable movement, that vegetables are bad for you. And I'm hearing you say that different people at different phases of life doing different things with different blood types, we're all different.
Yeah, I'm big on what I would say, like, what do you eat? It's like I eat a wide variety of colors and a lot of wild food. I'm trying to get as many colors as possible. And I had not heard about the anti-vegetable bandwagon. I'm not getting on that one.
I know you're not getting on it. That's why I want to ask you about it. I'm not about it either. I mean, I'm selling vegetables. So then moving off of that onto colors, there's a video that you have where you're saying eat the rainbow. And one of the colors that you mentioned is the color black and how that is so strong for your liver. Can you help?
And kidneys, yeah.
Oh, kidneys, excuse me.
Because the black color indicates the presence of a lot of minerals. So we've got, wild rice and black beans and chia seeds and, black olives and black sesame seeds. So the kidneys, according to the principles of Asian medicine, aren't just these, organs back here. They also govern mineral balance in the body that nourishes our teeth, our bones, our sense of hearing, the hair on our head, and libido. Yeah, more black foods. And some people, maybe have never eaten anything black.
Like chia seeds.
Yeah, I love chia.
Me too.
I soak those overnight and then eat them. Yeah, best survival food because you don't need to cook them.
Would you go through that rainbow a little bit with us and some different colors and what they associate with?
Sure. So like red foods are often high in lycopene, like tomatoes and watermelon. So I shop by getting the most colorful. And then a lot of orange foods.
And then what part of the body is that associated?
Well, red foods are often good for the blood.
Oh.
And not just lycopene. Like I make borscht a lot, like it's a Russian peasant soup. I used to make it when my daughters were at the menstruating age, or they still are, but builds your blood, okay? Pomegranates, red meat, watermelon, lycopene, so all the red foods. And then orange foods are high in beta carotene, and beta carotene, things like sweet potatoes, winter squash, carrots, they're good for our skin, they're good for our lungs.
And are you okay baking those, cooking those? I mean, hard to eat a potato raw.
Yeah, sweet potatoes you can eat raw.
Oh.
Yeah, you could puree them in the food processor, but I do bake them.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, I do bake them nowadays. But when I wrote raw some, I would make them into shoestrings and then dehydrate them and make like Chinese noodles out of them. And then a lot of yellow foods, a lot of yellow foods are high in vitamin C. We could say lemons and yellow cucumbers and yellow tomatoes, okay? And vitamin C we know is good for immunity. And then green, like the middle of the rainbow, green is high in chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is only one atom of difference from hemoglobin, which makes our blood red. So chlorophyll is like plant blood. And it's right in the middle of the color spectrum. And so my friend David Wolf likes to say, eating greens is a discipline. You know, like, and I try to get people like, eat more greens, whether you eat meat or beans or whatever it is, try having it on a bed of greens. So how can you get more greens into your diet? Big one. And then,
do you recommend eating greens first in the meal? Is there an order to when?
You know, I've done everything. You know, one of my friends like, we have to have the salad after the da-da-da.
Yeah.
It's like,
Just get it in.
I've tried all. I try it all, but I do think it's good to have enzymes in every meal.
Okay.
And then blue, indigo, and violet, they're pretty close together. You know, like is it blue, is it indigo? But those are often high in the anthocyanins that help to improve peripheral circulation to our eyes and ears and brain function. And then white foods are often high, some of them are high in allicin, like garlic and cauliflower, jicama. But, you know, the American diet's kind of beige. You know, white bread, white corn, white flour.
And what's that associated with? That's just kind of like dull.
Well, it's kind of like, the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. That's what they used to say in the natural foods industry. And again, you know, garlic is white and onions are white, so it's not all bad, but a lot of the white foods are good for our lungs. But again, if it's when we turn things into white, but they were originally another color, even like sugar. You know, molasses is where all the nutrients went to.
In one of your videos, you speak to salt, and that really stood out to me of more color in the salt, a black salt. I've never even heard of that, black rice, but a black or having I do a sea salt, and it's like white, it's clear. And I think I'm getting like the best thing ever. Yeah,
but you could do a little better. And, you know, there's all this controversy, Himalayan salt or Celtic salt. I'm friends with the Celtic salt people, but, you know, you always hear like, oh, it's got heavy metals in it, you know. It really shouldn't. I trust the Celtic salt people, and there's a lot of deception in the food industry too. Things that are being, you know, cut, you know, like, oh, is it really saffron, or are we adding safflowers to it?
Just a little sprinkle of it. I think they call it pixie dusting. Yeah.
Okay, so we want to, you know, support companies that have high integrity. So you vote with your dollars, you know, and by voting and supporting what we believe in, we help to create a better world. We've got to do it for our kids, future generations, and be part of the solution rather than just complaining about what's not right.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you putting so much information out there. Of the 17, have you written 17 books? Is that right?
I think we're up to 18 now.
18 books. Which one would you say has caused the most stir, has gotten the most kind of excitement out of people, made the most impact? Maybe you're the most proud of?
Well, I loved writing Rawsome, because I would make the food and it was so delicious.
And you're a very good writer. I've read some of your work, and I think you're a very strong writer.
People say, this is awesome. But my latest book, Natural Remedies for Mental and Emotional Health, because so many people are like, they're depressed and they have anxiety, and a lot of it, rather than thinking you need a different kind of doctor for your depression and anxiety and your OCD, it's like, if you look at the principles of Asian medicine, our physical body affects our mental body, and our mental body affects our physical body.
Yeah.
Natural First Aid, I think, is doing really well. It's a nice little pocket-sized book.
Would you going back to the more like stress-focused book, the name of that one again,
Natural
please?
Remedies for Mental and Emotional Health.
Could you give us a couple takeaways, maybe just high level, on how people can support their health, their stress?
Well, for example, depression, like, oh, you're depressed. Well, yes, a lot of people are depressed, and there's a lot of things that can be depressing. But I don't think enough doctors are saying, how could we improve the health of your liver? Could you be doing some more sour foods, like drinking lemon and water, eating more berries? Could eating more greens help, because the liver loves greens? Could we unplug? You know, what about, if hunters would benefit from the courage of an elk or a buffalo that they killed, what about eating the anxiety of animals that are factory farmed?
That's a very good point.
Could we be like, oh, I'm so depressed and anxious because you're eating eggs from chickens that live a hell realm?
Yeah.
You're not going to get great health from that. So that's something to look at. Maybe if you're eating animals that come from, they're happy and they get to actually mate and eat outside and have friends and have a good life. Like, okay, they get fed during their life, and
because you're taking on that energy.
Yeah, I think that could be a thing. What about eating things you're allergic to? If you're allergic to something, gluten, dairy, soy, corn, that can cause inflammation not only in your skin and your joints, but in your brain. So my book has ideas: food, herbs, supplements, flower essences, smelling different essential oils. Do you want to go down Freak Out Freeway or Lavender Lane? Like, I'm taking the Lavender Lane.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
that's for anxiety.
Okay.
Smell lavender.
Okay, lavender helps with that. Yeah, lavender is very common. And is it? I think of lavender. I think of it like as a sleepy time thing.
Yeah, lavender is going to calm nervous anxiety, help you sleep. Yeah, all of those things.
Any other flowers or scents that help in that way?
Well, I mean, my book, Natural Remedies for Mental and Emotional Health, is like, have you tried St. John's wort or kava kava or lavender or albizia, the happiness herb? And rather than just, take my word for it, there's all kinds of resources in the book, and it tells you what are the energetics of the plant, what's the Latin name, like a bunch of super nerdy stuff.
And people can just find that on Amazon or online.
Support local businesses, and BrigitteMars.com.
Oh, nice.
My website has all my books.
Okay, beautiful. And then you were going into the like plant healing type medicine for like cuts and scrapes.
Well, natural first aid.
Thank you.
What to do in an emergency. It even tells you how to deliver a baby. What to do for a bad acid trip. I got to throw that in there too. Like,
tell us.
Change the music. Be prepared. If you're inside, go outside. If you're outside, go inside. But don't just avoid the problems, because it can be very damaging psychologically. Like, you got to plan it and be in a safe space with people you know and trust, and in a clean and healthy environment. Otherwise, like, oh my God. Are the walls breathing?
Yeah.
The molecules are moving, and you might see that. So you better be in a good place.
Yeah. How has sacred plant medicine played a part in your journey, your discovery, your passion or knowing of these plants? I mean, you speak to acid. That's a synthetic.
Right. And you could use the same remedies for whether it be mushrooms or anything else too. Well, I will say, I think those medicines, sacred plant medicines, and my preference is to use natural medicines.
Same.
Yeah. So I think that they can open your eyes and to see the energy. You actually see the energy. And I'm trying to think of the ahas that I've had, like trying ginseng for the first time while I was on psychedelics. Like, wow, I really feel this. I would kind of set up my altar for psychedelic experimentation. Like, I'm going to play around with flower essences or crystals or smelling essential oils and my color therapy glasses and see what I think about all this.
I never thought to do that. I've got the chills. I love that idea.
Yeah, well, I am a psychedelic sitter.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, I have been for 50 years. I go way back with Dr. Leary and the gang.
Would you tell us more about that work and kind of keeping it within the lens of plants?
Well, I actually lived with Rosemary Leary, who was Timothy Leary's wife, when she was wanted for helping. He escaped from prison because he was running for governor against Ronald Reagan. And it looked like he was going to win. And John Lennon had written a campaign song. So anyways, here I was, 19 years old, and I found myself in the center of a lot. And I'm writing a memoir book about it called Wildflower Child, A Tale of Sex, Psychedelics, and Natural Foods. And I'm actually recording it as an audiobook first before it goes to print, because you can always publish the book later, but you're only going to get my voice while I'm still here. So. So
when might we expect that?
I think I've recorded 4 chapters yesterday, so we're moving along. I think we'll see it. I have a great group of people helping me. And I want to share all that. So, but I learned from Rosemary Leary, you don't just take these things, you take them with intention, you create safe set and setting, and you leave time for integration. It wasn't a party thing. It was always like, we called it a sacrament. So that's how I learned how to use those things. And, you see things on every level, auras and chakras and meridians. And if you use it right, if you're just at a concert or a party, it's all about that, the friends and the music. But that's not my thing.
Yeah, you're about going within. And if someone new into that space, what might be a good entry point for them? Maybe
a good entry point. Well, you don't have to take the heroic dose like right away, like Terence McKenna said. Start with a small dose, but have an intention, be in a safe place, not driving, not in the public. It's really not fair to bring that energy out with everybody. They're acting weird. I do have a little YouTube on my YouTube station called Psychedelic Ceremony, which has some nice ideas. Start with a prayer and intention, be with people you know and trust, have some snacks for later so you don't have to navigate like, oh, we need a watermelon right now. Have some art supplies, things that maybe you want to experiment with. And not art supplies, but not synthetic magic markers. Because the smell, you say, this doesn't feel right.
What about music and instruments?
Oh, very important. Yeah, I tend to play music that's really devotional. Amani Friend from Desert Dwellers, Liquid Bloom, they have a lot of music that's kind of designed to be parangi. There's also Spotify, some stations that are kind of designed for that. I don't like all of them. I'm trying to, I want people, it's not about the music, it's about the music opening up different neural pathways.
Thank you for sharing. What are your thoughts about mixing medicines?
I think that can cause unpredictable results for people. So, maybe if it's something you're really experienced with, but that could be dangerous and unpredictable and create more problems. And just because something's available doesn't mean it's the right time to do it. So I'm certainly not going to say, oh yeah, mix things, because that could be dangerous.
What about a frequency of going into these types of prayers and experiences? Is this something that maybe is a once a year, or is what might people think of like a cadence of?
I think if you do it right, it's not going to be very often at all. I auditioned for Survivor a couple times, and they flew me to LA, and one of the questions was, have you ever taken LSD? And I said, every Easter since I was 15. Of course, not when I was pregnant, and of course I prefer psilocybin now, but that was certainly a part. I would of my growing up. I'm a child of the 60s, and I gave it my all. And I remember I was taking notes.
Okay, you were. So you were integrating.
I was integrating.
You were journaling
because I was a
after.
mom, and I was really focused on my children are going to be up early in the morning, and they're going to have crunchy granola with cattail pollen and wild service berries and homemade yogurt from the goat's milk. I mean, that was really my focus.
And you say LSD and of course now psilocybin. Why is that
because LSD is synthetic. It takes a very long time, and I don't use chemical pharmaceuticals. I mean, I would, or if what I was doing wasn't working, but it usually works. So I want to support things that grow in nature. Yeah, that's just my way.
Some people say, have you heard of the stone to ape theory and our evolution? Do you have any thoughts around that, and how psilocybin, magic mushrooms, have played a part in the human evolution?
Well, Terence McKenna, who wrote The Archaic Revival, used to stay with us when he was in town, and he was an amazing, brilliant man. And he talked a lot about how psilocybin perhaps helped in evolution of humanity because people could see further, hear more acutely. It could help people resolve tribal differences, even help solve, problems like where should we go next, or where's the best hunting, or where are the buffalo now, or how can we solve this division in our community?
Brings clarity.
Yeah. I certainly think that it has contributed to evolution. When you think of the music of the 60s, and, I sometimes like to joke, and this was an article that was written in the San Francisco Chronicles called "The Hippies Were Right All Along," because, I'll tell you, 1968, the hippies were doing recycling, medical marijuana, sacred use of psychedelics, recycling, organic gardening, natural childbirth, solar energy, wind power, like communal living, like all of these things that we were exploring. They had their perils and problems. Yoga, natural medicine. These were all things that now, like, they were onto something. Maybe we should look into that kind of thing, sprouting, recycling. Yeah, and I think that the psychedelics maybe inspired people, because you would look around and say, we got to do better. We got to make the world better. So
if people are hearing you and they're like, maybe they're new to these types of medicines and they want to inquire about sitting with you, what might that look like? What might someone expect if they were to sit with you in that kind of a way?
Well, again, I'm not the medicine maker or grower,
Sure.
So that's a separate thing.
Of course.
But, I talk to people. What is your intention? Do you have any health issues I should know about? Are you on any pharmaceuticals that would be contraindicated?
Like what?
SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors,
which are like
Prozac and Lexapro and
like antidepressants. Yeah.
But then there's other ones. I want to know, and can they take the day off after this? Someone has to come drive you home, and then there's like ground rules. Because it's a lot to keep safe space. I usually just work with one person at a time. And it's not a lot. It's not like, that's my full-time job. I teach at Naropa University, but I've always, even back in the hippie days, hippie days are here again, I sometimes like to say too. But I was often asked, can you sit with me? Can you sit with me? Can you stay with me? Can you help me feel safe and protected and honored? And, I'm a grandmother, so I might sit there and crochet while you're seeing patterns. But
and your thought is to, or sitters that I've had sit for me interact very little.
Yes, because I'm not going to interfere and try to give you my spiritual philosophy, even though if you ask, I'm happy to tell you. I read the Urantia book. I'm Witches for Jesus, because he had a core of women apostles they left out of the Bible. But I'm not going to give my spiritual download. I'm there to help you have your experience and have your intentions. And while I'm sitting there, I might make recommendations about foods you might want to eat more of, things you might want to do differently, some books you might want to read, some movies you might want to read. I often tell my clients, before I sit with them, have you watched Fantastic Fungi? Great show. Or How to Change Your Mind, or read Michael Pollan's book. So How to Change Your Mind. So I'm really there to just help them have the most safe, positive outcome for their own evolution. And for a lot of people, it's a one-time thing, and some people come back every year. Yeah, it's really amazing and interesting.
This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, organic freeze-dried microgreens for easy, everyday nutrition. Sprinkle them on any meal and enjoy the benefits. Shop now and save with code STEVE15 at bmicro.farm. And for me, the first time I ever sat with plants, that changed my whole trajectory. I was in corporate America selling software for a decade, grew up in a very loving and conservative Christian family. It was all very vilified, even indigenous cultures, almost like, hey, they're like savage and they don't know, and it's like really looked down upon almost in an unspoken way, but that was kind of like the energy of the church, really. And so the first time I ever had cannabis was when I was 27, when it was legal, and I was in California, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go to an alley, and I'm going to do it in a legal way at a dispensary. I was like, this is way better than alcohol. I was like, what is this? And then a friend shared with me some possibilities of other plants down in the jungle. Sat with those, and I was like, "Whoa! These plants are like our teachers, our healers, our friends, our guides. There's wisdom and love." And I just got full clarity into it. I'm like, "Oh, this is it. I gotta help spread these plants."
Yeah, well, absolutely. And the things like ayahuasca and peyote, they were made by the creator, and I have great respect for that. And I don't serve those medicines. I'm leaving that for the indigenous people, that's from their homeland. But psilocybin can be grown in Colorado. So, but I do think that it's almost like an emergency dispensation to help people, and it probably has helped our evolution and helps us to see how connected we are to the earth. I know that,
and to each other.
Absolutely, and I know that. Being on psychedelics and just walking through the city, you can see that the earth is suffering. You can see the film in the air. You can see how people drive cars with their egos. You can see, it kind of makes you want to do something different. Yeah. So
maybe some words of wisdom or advice on one or two things people can do.
Whenever I have the mic, if I get to say two things, I'll say, if you have water to throw away, throw it on a plant. What if everyone had a basin in their sink, and rather than just like pouring so much water and running the water, we need to respect water more. Like fill up the basin, open up the kitchen door, and give it to the raspberries or the broccoli or something out there. And then
I have you quoted on that, pulling that from an ancient Hindu proverb.
Yes, And then the other proverb, and I've heard it was a Hebrew proverb, but who knows really, all cultures seem to cross over at some point. But the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
And what type of tree might people plant?
Well, something that bears fruit. That would be great, that you can eat, and your descendants could eat from that apple tree or mulberry tree. So I really love it when I, see wow, there's just it could feed the world. Why are we privatizing it so much? Shouldn't we just all be about making the world more beautiful instead of where was the Garden of Eden? Let's do our best to recreate the best that we can and give honor to the Creator.
Agreed. And by us being more self-sufficient and being able to grow our own food, we become more free as well.
And healthier. If your body is in good shape, you're able to do good things. Bob Marley said a hungry man is an angry man. So if you take care of your basic material comfort, then it's a lot easier to be able to work on, creating companies that do good things for people, or, making something that's beneficial for all.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to do a lightning round with you right now.
Lightning round.
A little lightning round where I'm going to, a word association.
Okay.
So I'm going to say a word to you, and there's just going to be a list of different types of plants, and you're going to say 1, 2, 3 words that just come to you in that. This lightning round is brought to us by B Micro, the easiest way to sneak more microgreens into any meal. Here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Dandelion.
Lawns. Noodles from the stems, lutein, sunshine.
Rose.
Heart opening.
Hemp.
Most useful plant on the planet. Makes food, fuel, fiber, fabric. Love it.
Pine.
Walk in the woods and smell the air and heal your lungs.
Cedar.
Memories of cedar chests repels moths in your closet.
Sage.
Do we mean Salvia officinalis or Artemisia?
Both.
Okay, Artemisia. Send your prayers heavenward by burning. And sage. He who hath sage in his garden hath no need of a physician. Ancient Latin proverb.
Tobacco.
Dad would blow it in my ears for earaches when I was a kid. But very addicting, but can be used in ceremony.
Sweetgrass.
Braiding sweetgrass. Leave it to the natives to collect.
Palo Santo.
Smells really good. I hear it's a fermented wood that they treat it to make it do that.
Copal.
Copal. Yeah, I don't burn those so much because I'm kind of leaving them for the natives, copal and palo santo. I burn it if people give it to me.
Mm-hmm. Same. Red cabbage.
Ah, yes, red cabbage. Good for your blood. Use it to make borscht with purple potatoes and red beets.
Broccoli.
Good for the lungs. Broccoli. It's tiny trees. Like it looks like spears of broccoli, tiny trees. That's how you get your grandchildren to eat it.
Microgreens.
Microgreens, superfood, concentrated, magic.
Psilocybin.
Good to have respect for. Blue coloration. I think they were doing that in the Dune movie, drinking that blue drink. And psilocybin. Proceed with caution and with intention.
And you nailed it with the Dune movie that did come out. The director or the writer did say that was inspired from psilocybin. Because when you cut open the fresh psilocybin mushroom, it turns blue.
Blue spore prints, gift from heaven, mana.
Now you hit on hemp, where it's the most helpful plant to us. Would you share a little bit more on that?
Well, on April 19th, at Rebecca's Apothecary, I'm doing a class called Out on a Limb, Cannabis is the Tree of Life. And I'll just give you one hint. You know, the Bible talks about the holy anointing oil that was even used in the Old Testament as well as used in the New Testament. The holy anointing oil was said to be made with olive oil, cinnamon, myrrh, and cannabosum. And in the 3rd century BC, of a Greek translation of the Old Testament, they translated cannabosum to be Acorus calamus, which is not a very useful plant. It has beta-acerone, which is a carcinogen.
So they changed the word to something else?
You know, they were translating it like, what is cannabosum? I think it's very obvious that it's cannabis, which would have had a healing effect if you're healing the sick, and, you know, used in many of the ceremonies, whether it be a baptism or extreme unction or confirmation or knighthood or, you know, all of those things. Yeah.
My understanding of cannabis is it's one of the longest partnerships with humans that we've co-evolved for.
Yeah, Carl Sagan, who I know was a stoner, said probably the oldest cultivated plant on the face of the earth, because it's something that you could use to make rope, fabric, fiber, lamp oil, sandals, clothing, medicine. You can eat the leaves as a salad, and the seeds are the second highest source in protein next to soybeans, which are often GMO'd and hard to digest for a lot of people. So hemp seed, I wrote a hemp cookbook also.
I put hemp seeds almost on everything. I grow hemp in my garden just to learn it and connect with it and be with it. I really enjoy it. And we have a whole endocannabinoid system. Would you tell us about that?
We do not have an endoginsenicide or echinacea system. Like, I'm pretty serious about it, that if the extraterrestrials, who's so obvious, visited here, were to have brought one plant here to help civilize humanity, you know, when they were going to go mate with make the Nephilim or whatever, it's all coming to light here. What plant would have done more to civilize humanity? Like, okay, you can make clothing, you can have light in your home, and you can make animal bed, you can eat the leaves. Cannabis is not just about, you know, let's get high. It's about, we juice the leaves and it makes you feel amazing.
Yeah, like lightning to the blood.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
food, medicine, shelter, clothing.
Yeah. I do think if I were going to another planet, I would bring dandelion, nettles, and cannabis with me.
And you shared on how soy, what would you say it's the second most, or the...
Well, soy is technically higher in protein than hemp seed. However, it's harder to digest. It's also a common allergen. And it's hard to get soy that's not GMO. And
so tofu is made out of soy, right?
Right.
And then there's a trend out there calling men that eat tofu soy boys, meaning maybe it increases your estrogen, it makes you soft, makes you kind of like these beta males.
It has some precursors, genistein, some precursors to estrogen. And, you know, soy's in a lot of things, soy protein, soy milk, soy flour. I prefer, it's not like I don't ever eat it, but like I prefer fermented soy like miso and tempeh. But I do find that soy tofu and soy milk give people a lot of gas. Yeah. And
is that the GMO or non-GMO? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. It's really, I prefer it if it's fermented. That, again, it's not to say that I wouldn't have Thai food with tofu in it rather than shrimp or something.
Another plant interested in that is very popular is peanuts. Would you tell us your opinion on peanuts?
Well, I love the taste of them, but supposedly they're crop rotated with cotton.
Yeah.
And since cotton is not considered a food crop, they spray the heck out of the cotton and then plant peanuts in there. There's also a mold called aflatoxin, which is a known carcinogen. So, yeah, the mold thing. Yeah, I really like peanuts, but when I had acne as a teenager, I wish someone had said, stop eating peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in everything. It is delicious, and
Yeah.
it is a rotation crop with cotton, and cotton is one of the most pesticided crops out there.
So now I try to do tahini or almond butter, not so much cashew butter.
I've got one more lightning round for us.
Okay, lightning round.
Was that good?
Yeah, I like lightning.
All right, yeah, the right round's pretty good. We get
Okay, lightning.
All right, so this one is, I'm just going to ask you questions,
Okay.
and then we'll just keep it to like one sentence kind of a thing.
Yeah.
What is your favorite plant?
Well, I said dandelion, nettles, and cannabis.
What is the most underrated plant?
Dandelion.
If you could use one herb for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Dandelion, nettles, and cannabis.
Yeah, okay. we gotta circle back to dandelions a little bit more before we end this. What is the best herb book that you've ever read besides, any of your own? Yeah. Yeah.
I love Maud Greaves' herbalism books. She wrote them during World War II to empower the British people. Maud Greaves, the herbal. I think it's.
If people were to start with just one of your books that haven't read any of your work, where would you have them start?
I love the Country Almanac of Home Remedies because it's folk medicine. Things you can do with lemon and garlic and ginger and cayenne pepper and apple cider vinegar that you probably already have in your kitchen.
What is one small herb practice everyone should add to their daily routine?
Drink a quart of herbal infusion every day. I often do nettles.
What's a plant that you've recently become fascinated with?
Albizia, the happiness herb.
Where's that grown?
Tropics, Hawaii, California.
What is your spirit plant?
My spirit plant. I guess it's cannabis. I always call it praise and blaze. But I guess you asked. I'm just going to be honest here. My spirit plant. But really, I don't think we need any plant to commune with God's spirit. It's our breath. It's like gratitude.
Great. Thank you. And thanks for meeting with me today. That was really great. I would love to know how can people find you, support your work, learn more about what you got going on?
Thank you. Well, BrigitteMars.com, you have to spell it the French way, Brigitte Mars, Brigitte Mars, that is my last name. .com has all my classes and books, and I'm so delighted to meet you. Thank you for your wonderful questions. So I have a 10-week herbal medicine class starting April 9th. It'll be a lot about foraging, but I'm so committed. This is my work. I feel I get to work and help the creator, help the planet, help the people, help the plants. So good, so grateful. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. And anything else that you'd like to share with the people?
Eat the weeds. Healthiest thing you can do. I'm not kidding.
Great. Thank you, Madge.
Thank you.